So once you have a podcast, let's talk about how you can grow your coaching business with it, because unless you started a podcast just as a hobby, the goal of it is to grow your coaching business. So here's some ideas for you guys, and I would love to hear in the comments your thoughts on it if you have other ideas for other coaches as well, because there's a lot of room for exploration here. First thing is you can record your calls with clients, obviously with permission. But I think one barrier to entry for people considering getting coaching with you would be, what is it like? And we can say what it's like and we can show reviews from people, but it's different if someone's in the room with you. So I think a really exciting thing is to have little segments of your coaching sessions with those clients who feel confident about that. And you could do it in a couple different ways. You could have 4 different clients in one episode. You can have 4 episodes, each a client. You could have a topic that you speak about and then interject a client session in the middle. Different things like this could really push your show's format and give more interest and uniqueness to it. You could also hold a group coaching call, and you can gather questions in that format and then address those questions on your podcast. And this all connects into knowing our audience, knowing our niche. When we speak directly to our people, they hear us and it resonates with them and they want to work with us. So by working with your current client base or your listener base and asking questions, you're generating content that is really applicable to your target audience. You can live stream like I'm doing. So I will turn this into some sort of podcast or Instagram live or Instagram IGTV video. I will repurpose this in some way. And you can do the same with your coaching. So you can live stream and then turn that into an episode. Invite well-known experts onto your show. Not only does this give your show more street cred, but it just gives the show so much richness and so much value for years to come. And if they have a larger following or audience or client base, you'll then gain access. And one tip there is, when guests appear on your show, in your introductory email to them, include potentially a request or requirement that they share with their email list and at least once on social media. And you generate the graphics and the blurb template for them to share. This will increase the amount of times that your podcast is shared, because oftentimes clients won't request this, won't push this point with their guests, and the episode that they just put all this time into and money in editing and production doesn't get viewed as much. So I really recommend leveraging your guests. You can use the podcast to create a course, or you can use a course to create a podcast. And some people may be worried, like, oh, well, if I make a course and I charge for it, then I can't put it on the podcast. But I would say that the audience could potentially be very different, and there's not direct competition. You could also create an introductory course that starts on the podcast and then converts over to a full course. So there's a lot of room there. You can drive traffic to a lead magnet. So you have a lead magnet on your website with your free guide or your free workbook or a free consultation or anything that is giving free value in exchange for email. And on the podcast, you can share this, and it's a great way to convert, to get your audience to convert. And then last but not least, sponsorships and Patreon. So monetization is a big topic and everyone's really interested in it. It doesn't really matter in the beginning stages, because unless you have thousands and thousands of downloads per episode, the sponsorship deals you're going to get are not going to be worth it so much, unless you know the business and they're just really interested and they're sort of investing in you. So not to discourage you from exploring it, but I don't think it should be the priority right at the beginning. It also detracts from your content. I would recommend, if you get past a certain point, maybe past 500 to 1,000 downloads per episode consistently, then you could start to approach businesses that you really love and really believe in. And I'm just going to take a look at the comments here. Melissa said that you can edit the course into an excerpt and put that on the podcast. And I think that's an awesome idea. That's totally a great idea. So you can create sort of the highlights of the course, or you could pull out some of the juicy bits and then go into it even more on your podcast, and that gives people sort of a view into what taking the course would be like. And now Patreon is sort of an awesome in between, because you're asking every listener to be a sponsor. You're saying, hey, if you love my content, consider giving $1, giving $3. It really helps with editing, helps with hosting, all this, right? So you could try and cover your hosting costs just with Patreon. And I think that podcasters are generous, meaning podcast listeners are generous, sorry. And if they love the content and they want that to keep coming, Patreon is a great way. Now, inside your podcast episode, I really recommend asking your listeners to share and subscribe at the beginning and the end. And this goes for every kind of content that is like a video or a live stream. If you ask your viewers, in fact, if you guys are liking this and you wouldn't mind sharing it on your wall, that'd be great. And I'm just doing this to model what I mean, because you guys probably appreciate this, but maybe you thought that I didn't need you to share it, or maybe it just slipped your mind. So when we ask for what we need, people have the option of showing up for that. And this is a great relationship skill. But asking to subscribe and share is really valuable. So don't underestimate the beginning and the end of your episode and what you can get from that. Another couple really practical things for how you can leverage your podcast is to go onto Chartable and create a smart link. This smart link will help you with analytics, and it will help your listeners go to their podcast listening platform of choice with one click. So I click on your smart link and it will take me, if I'm on iPhone, to Apple Podcasts. If I'm on an Android, it might take me to Google. Or if I always listen to podcasts on Spotify, it might take me there. So it's a really great way to erase the barrier to entry for new podcast listeners, because a lot of people don't know how to listen to podcasts still. So there's a little bit of education there. And then a link tree, which is a link that houses other links in your profile, on Instagram especially, because you don't have a lot of real estate there. So you want to make sure that people can access your podcast, your website, other resources you're giving. So I highly recommend that link tree. And then, of course, just having social media channels that can support the podcast. So when you post an episode, you can push it to all your channels simultaneously.